So we're going to talk about the topic beyond buzzwords, digital governance, accelerating doing business in Africa. When we were preparing for the panel discussion, we had some very great discussions saying that when it comes to entering the African market and especially providing different tools for transformation and digitalization, you cannot go there as an European company just kind of doing the talk for a bubble. So you really need to go there and really provide a very concrete services because what's happening in Africa is actually also very inspirational to everybody here in Europe. So I'm going to promise to you that we will have a very kind of practical panel. This is what we agreed with all the panelists. But for this, I am excited to ask on the stage the panelists, like I said before. First, Isaac John Ochieng. He's the Director General at the eCitizen Services and coming all the way from Kenya. So you can come and have a seat here. You can take that one as well, yeah, where your name is also right. So secondly, I'm very, very happy to also ask Caline Djiowa, who is the co-founder of Saphir Capital, to join me here on the stage. So let's do a round of applause. And now we jump back to Estonia. So Helena Lepp, who is the Director of Services Transformation at the company called Digital Nation. So also welcome on the stage. And last but not least, Dr. Ralph Oyini Mbouna. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. It was good. So he is the Director of Digital Transformation and Services at Smart Africa and coming all the way from Rwanda. So to kick off our panel discussion, I think it's no surprise that the entire transformation in digitalization in Africa is really also rapidly becoming a massive driver for inclusive economical growth in the African region as well. So in the panel, I would love to explore especially how different kind of e-government and ICT solutions are really reshaping the African business landscape, and of course also improving public services delivery and cutting also pretty much the red tape and creating investor-friendly environment. So as a kick-off question actually to all the panelists here, I always love to talk about the trends. Digital transformation is really kind of unfolding rapidly in Africa, but I would say often also in very different scales. As a first question also maybe here in Helena on my right hand, what are the key trends that you are seeing across continent in terms of digital public services and business also facilitation?
Thank you, Anett, and thank you all of you for staying for this session and not running away. Well, thanks for asking me about Africa first. I was hoping you were asked this from Africans, but it's a
different angle, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we heard that also from the previous panel as well. I think that's not a trend in Africa as such, but everywhere in the world. So AI is everywhere, also in Africa. But another thing to maybe highlight is the growth of importance of digital public infrastructure and digital public goods in Africa, and not just like in a national ecosystem, but in cross-border, for example, in the context of Smart Africa. But yeah, maybe I'll hand over to next one.
Yeah, Caline, from your side, some of the trends that you would love to bring it out.
Yeah, I can add up to what was just said to include education, right? So government have recognized the importance of skilled workforce, especially in Africa, where we have such a large portion of the population which is very young, right? So education is a trend that you can see in a lot of countries. I may come back on the digital infrastructure to focus on something very specific, which is data center infrastructure and submarine cables, especially in West Africa, which is, to me, the true backbone of digital transformation. And this also leads me to another trend that we can observe, because we all know the energy challenges of digital infrastructure. So knowing that, and knowing also that most Africa economy have so much pain with energy, we see more and more countries starting investing massively in green energy. Would that be solar farms in Mali or nuclear facilities now in Togo? We see that they don't just think about the immediate items related to digital infrastructure, but also all the sites, technology or infrastructure that are very critical to make the entire, let's say, ecosystem work. Something that I would want to conclude with is the rise or the increasing number of digital and innovation hubs. So these are not just places where people will gather and so on and so forth. We know that countries like Kenya and Rwanda are very advanced on that. But we see that countries like Togo, Benin, and Ivory Coast are organizing to actually build up very innovative, let's say, hubs. Thank you.
We're having a bit of, so you can.
Very innovative hubs. And the importance of hubs is not just to let's say foster or ecosystems or startups and so on and so forth. To me, it has the power of actually creating the ecosystem that are needed for African business to thrive. When you launch a business in Europe, you usually have pieces of your value chain readily available. In Africa, sometimes you have to go and find and kind of build yourself the ecosystem that is needed for your business to thrive. So this is what I would say.
So we're also going to have one of the panels on the green transition as well. So we'll hear a bit more on this also a bit later. But Isaac, from your side, anything that you would like to add what we heard here before?
Thank you very much. I hope, am I audible? Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity and having this conversation with my great brothers and sisters here. I would say that the education is very important, but historical background is also very key to achieve this digital transformation. Because when we got our independence in 1963 in Kenya, we are about 60 years old since we got our independence. The leadership then focused on three things. That was education, literacy, and good health. So yes, the Kenyan population, I think 90%, 95% of Kenyans are literate, and then we've also gotten good health. Now we are now reaping the fruits of education, because you see, 75% of Kenyans are Gen Zs, so you can imagine. So most of the uptake of digitization and the push are from the young people. So the present administration realized that, and they campaign on that agenda of digitization of the government sector. Then we then in 2022 we had only 3,000 services that were onboarded onto the eCitizen platform. But upon the push, so it's leadership. Leadership is very key of the country. Leadership of the country and the transformation agenda. So we realized that our present president really pushed hard, and since I was appointed as the first Director General of eCitizen Services, we are now at 22,000 services and counting. We had a lot of revenue leaks. Upon digitization, we realized that the revenue shot up by about 350 to 400%. So you can imagine, 300 to 400% revenues that are now going straight into the government. Two, we can also be able to see visibility of the revenues and services. We can also see the revenue flows. We can tell the genders. We can tell the timing of people obtaining services. Three, and that is very fundamental. Previously, you would wait for 8 to 5. The government operates from 8 in the morning up to 5 in the evening. But now it's 24-hour economy. That never used to be there. So now it is actually there now. And then most importantly now, so the thing that came up now is the data protection. We know we must protect the data protection. So we have a data protection agency that actually regulates how we actually operate and how we protect the data. So that is already done. So the other thing that is also key, and that's why we are very grateful for this, what I would call digital diplomacy that Estonia has embarked on, and we need to enhance it so that we can be able to cooperate more in Africa, so that we can be able to enhance it and realize it. Is that we need to bring in more African countries so that they can be able to realize what we've realized between Kenya and Rwanda, or rather from Rwanda, vis-a-vis the revenues that are now going up into our national treasury. And we are noticing that something very interesting trend, maybe we can talk more about that. Because with more revenues, the governments now relies less and less on economic partners outside, especially for revenue assistance from our development partners. So what we are seeing, and that is very fundamental for this forum, maybe that is one of the key take-homes, is what we would call it, what we are calling in Kenya now is economic liberation. Because you see, what started as digitization is now going, because we attained our political liberation in 1963, but we are now seeing clearly the economic liberalization due to digitization, something that never used to be there before. Mm-hmm. Maybe I will let my partner maybe talk more about it. Thank you.
Yeah, so all the way to you.
All right, I think, good morning, everyone, first of all. I think everything has been said. I'm just going to give the context, because one of the things that we have at Smart Africa is like we deal with African leaders and African digital experts across the continent on an everyday basis. The day before yesterday, it was Africa Day, 1963.
Yeah.
The African Union was created for continental integration. And this is the context of Africa. We're looking at continental integration, regional integration, and national integration. This is how we see our businesses, African businesses and businesses across the world, to scale and last in Africa. And this is the mindset of our leaders, from the heads of state to the ministers. The panel before, we have the Minister of the Kingdom of Morocco. Mm. She was mentioning it. She said, Morocco, what we're trying to do here is to be a model for the rest of the continent, for better integration. So this is the spirit. And the ultimate tool for integration is digital. Mm. This is why, I'm so happy. It's not my first time in Estonia, but the more I come in Estonia, the more African delegates I see in the audience, right? So it means that digital is becoming a priority. And to be more precise, what we see is AI, of course. Mm. We see DPI, digital public infrastructure. And the proof that we see DPI, and I'm going to stop here, is we have DPI, we mean digital payments, data exchange, digital ID. Digital payments, you see central banks, of course. Data exchange, you see a lot of digital development agencies at national level being created. Digital ID, now in Africa, you see a lot of digital ID authorities being created. I was thinking about Benin, for example. They just created the Digital ID Authority. So, and let's not forget cybersecurity also. You see a lot of cybersecurity authorities. So that gives you a trend of the political will in Africa.
Awesome, thank you. So we kind of caught the whole picture of what's really happening in the continent. I'll jump back all the way now to Helena, to Estonia, and especially as you're working at the company called Digital Nation, and you're doing very much also different projects with African countries and so on. Estonia started its transformation process in digitalization over 30 years ago. It was a very different technology back in that time. If you could just bring it out, especially Estonian service transformation approach, have there been any kind of proven most adaptable or relevant when working with African counterparts as well? Some of the lessons or some kind of the key takeaways that we learned through the process of building the services here, like I said, about over 30 years ago, as the technology is improving all the time. Anything that some of the lessons from Estonian kind of service transformation approach that is very, very relevant in Africa today as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, back when I wasn't working in a digital nation, I was working in the Estonian government and very closely seeing how we did digital government and governance here. So I think one of the biggest lessons learned from our side is that digital transformation is not just about tech. It is not a tech project. It is maybe like 20% about technology, but it's 80% of transformation. And when I say transformation, I mean business side of digital services, leadership, and execution. So first of all, one of the biggest lessons learned, and something we also bring to other governments now, is that in Estonia, we realized, like a decade later when we started, or even more maybe, the importance of business side of digital services. What I mean about it is how we design public services and how we deliver public services to citizens, because that's really where we create the value for the citizens and for the businesses. If you don't manage to create value to your users, you have failed with the digital services. So that was the first thing. So that was a bit more than 10 years ago. We realized we have some services that work greatly, like taxing and some other services. But there were a bunch of services that were fragmented and were designed from the perspective of public administration and not from the perspective of the users. And we are still working on that. But that's not something we have fully solved. We still see it on the municipality level, where this is still a very critical issue. Then owing to the leadership, digital transformation is carried by the political leaders and from the leaders in the public sector. And when I say leaders, I don't mean just IT or ICT managers, but leaders in every level and domain, be it social security, fisheries, forestry, whatever. So that's one of the lessons learned here as well. Nowadays, digital transformation is a very important part of the training and capacity building for leaders at every level. And then last, but probably one of the most important success factors is the execution. You can have so many great policies, so many great strategies, but if you don't deliver, it's not worth it. The success is really defined by the delivery. So while it's important to have a consistent vision and objectives ahead of you in the long term, it is important to find wins. Wins how to really find the momentum for a digital transformation and start to show early results and good results. For example, if with the AI, in Estonia, we started actually with AI application in public services more than 5 years ago. And not with starting to have fully flexed AI strategies and very complicated roadmaps, but really let's start to find where we can implement AI in which public services, and then let's use these learnings to also inform our strategies and our policies for AI use in public services.
Thank you. So before I jump to the next question to Caline, I would like to remind you that we can also take a couple of questions from the audience. So if anybody has a question, you can just raise the hand. We will hand over the microphone to you, and then you can also be engaged in our conversation. So if anybody, you can just stand up, raise the hand, and I'd be happy to take a couple of questions as well. But Caline, like also our title said, it is like everything that the government is doing should be accelerating doing business in Africa, right? So you are working very closely with different kind of startups and investors in West Africa. So how does efficient digital governance really impact the confidence of new businesses? And do you feel this is actually going to the right direction and has an impact that the government is expecting to have?
Yeah. Thank you for the question.
I think there is still the probably.
Yes, thank you for the question, and this is a very important one. And before to proceed with my view on the answer, I would like to remind what investors are looking for. They are looking for places where they can confidently invest. They are looking for places where they can have some kind of the stability to project themselves in the return they are going to have. They also need to see the potential of the market. So not the potential only from the business model or the revenue model of the business they want to invest in. They're looking at the 360 kind of 360 view. So that said, when we talk about Africa, the digitalization or digital services bring something that is very key, which is one, to me, efficiency, and second, transparency. So efficiency means, in Europe in general, when you want to register a business, I have a business in Luxembourg, when you want to register, you barely need to move somewhere to do your administrative registration. If you have to think about spending 2 weeks or a month or 2 months only for registering a business, this is a problem. If you have no idea on how to pay your taxes, then you fear fines. If you don't know where to go for hiring and training your staff, this is an issue. So efficiency means that companies can redirect this workload and those capabilities to actually creating value for the business. Transparency also means that we all know that in Africa there's a perceived issue with corruption. Sometimes wrongly assume that the corruption is everywhere. With digitalization, removing such physical transaction and allowing some payment and administrative works to be done frictionless and without any interaction brings some kind of perception of less corruption and less risk in doing business. So those are the two main topics that I would see as the impact of digitalization of public services.
So thank you very much. And Isaac, you actually brought it out also different kind of initiatives that Kenya is doing, and especially also the eCitizen services that really has improved different kind of government to business interactions. Maybe you can bring out some very concrete examples in terms of very measurable impacts that you have seen, like, such as reduced business registration time or increased foreign investment confidence and so on. So maybe you have some very concrete examples as well that you would love to bring out. And when you made your opening remarks as well, I was also thinking if you could kind of bring out some of the biggest challenges that you have been facing, especially through this process of transformation as well, that you would like to share.
Thank you for that question again. I think it's quite key because what you have done as a country, and my principal secretary mentioned it in the last panel, is one of the ETA, the travel. The electronic travel authorization, whereby previously you had to go to the embassy, to the mission to apply, but now you go online and within 24 hours you've gotten your authorization. Then number two, you want to register business when you are still abroad as an investor. Right now, previously it would take you around 30 days, but now it takes you around 3 days and you've gotten your business that has been registered, whether you are Kenyan or a foreigner. Then number three, once you settle down, you want to get your work permit as an investor. You go online, you also apply. Previously, it would take you 3 months, but now within 15 to 20 days, you get your authorization as of a work permit. That's how we've been able to open up the country. Then also most importantly also is once you settle down, you can also go online and also be able to get accommodation. You don't have to physically walk around looking for property to settle in. So through online, also through various apps, you can be able to get accommodation. So that is what we've done. Then also on the financial sector, M-Pesa, you can also be able to transact online. So you don't need to go to the bank from time to time. Through M-Pesa, you can be able to to transact, to buy your household goods, to transact on whatever you want. That's how much we've been able to open. But I wanted to mention something, maybe just very quickly.
Yes, sure.
In Kenya, what we've done is, we've for us to be able to accelerate digitization, I think we adopted the Volkswagen principle, whereby the private sector is at the back and the Kenya leadership is being seen in the front. So the push has been from both sides. So technology, both private sector, local and international, pushing, and of course leveraging also now on enhancing it now on AI. That's how we've been able to move very fast. Then number two, what I mentioned was the political leadership. That is very key. Because you see, without political leadership driving it, we've realized you cannot be able to achieve that. And I think Kenya and Rwanda can be able to attest to that on where we are now. And then legislation, that is the parliament. Because you also need legislative agenda for you to be able to bolster what you've been able to achieve. And then the public participation, the public sector, because it must be all inclusive. You must be able to include the entire populace. And in Kenya, I think we mastered that, with our robust 2010 constitution. Really, really, really is a must for public participation. You cannot just come up with a policy even as government, although the parliament has been elected, the public will demand that they must be included. So we must sit down the public to tell them, this is where we are moving and this is what we want to achieve. Then so that has enabled the whole country to move together. Okay, so it's a very interesting model, and maybe we need to partner more with Estonia so that we can move the same agenda across Africa, so that we can be able to open up and then for our populace to be able to enjoy the services and goods for their countries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There is definitely a lot of ways to do that collaboration there. Going back to Smart Africa, Smart Africa really has emphasized also, a very much cross-border digital services as well. So if I could ask, how can we scale successful pilot projects into regional standards?
Very good question. Well, this comes into my mind. Scaling, and this is what we observe at Smart Africa across the continent with our different member states. Scaling really happens when you have technical standards meeting political will. That's how scaling happens. If you just have technical standards on their own or technical specs, scaling doesn't happen in Africa, maybe in Europe, but Africa, no. We even had this great conversation. I'm seeing delegates from East Africa community here. We had this great conversation yesterday about this. You need policies, political will, and the standards together, and then scaling is happening. And this is where our collaboration with Europe, with EU IMPA, is very fruitful. This is how our collaboration with Estonia, Estonian partners, I see digital nations here, we work together, and I see GovStack in the room as well. Is very useful. We had the Minister of Morocco earlier in the panel. For example, we're going to do very soon a workshop in Morocco with the different digital development agencies of our member states to define Africa data exchange guidelines. Again, that shows you the trend that is happening in Africa, how this is important for us, for, as my brother from Kenya said, for national integration, for regional integration, for continental integration, so businesses can scale and last, surfing on those digital infrastructure.
Awesome. So I do have a kind of a joint question to Caline and Helena. So Estonia has a very kind of a robust startup scene, which is very obvious, and of course also the digital infrastructure itself as well. But my question is more, how can African governments work more kind of closely with the private sector to create the very similar enabling environments as well? What will be your kind of takeaways from the Estonian experience and anything that you would like to recommend, because we kind of like to call it that the Estonian success is based on the public-private partnership and very largely working closely with the private entrepreneurs. So is there anything that you have learned from Estonia and something that could be also kind of implemented in Africa?
Yes, thank you for the question. I would like to come back to what my colleague Helena mentioned before. In terms of partnership, we know that Estonia, and Estonia especially, has done a lot in developing building blocks for the e-government. This capability, this know-how is now implemented in many countries in Africa. We mentioned Benin. We also know that some similar initiatives are being performed in other countries, including Togo. But to me, to actually make it work, we can see that it's not only the technology the tools that was important in this kind of partnership, but the way the project themselves are built. We see that implementing a data exchange, like export, for example, within a government, is not just a copy-paste. It requires a full, holistic strategy that will consider the workforce locally, the specific context of the country itself. So what are the items or the capabilities that are already available? What are the level of maturity of the administrations that will be using those tools? So all these kind of elements have to be considered in developing the execution plan, right from the strategy definition. And to me, this is where the partnership can be very much enhanced, because only taking the tools is good, but collaborating in defining the right way to execute and to implement such strategies and tools is really powerful. Is the only way to make it work.
Helena, something that you would like to add as well?
Yes. First of all, I agree with you 100%. It's important to really consider how we build these tools. And I think here one of the factors to success once again is like to build together with public sector and private sector together. So the partnerships don't really work in a way that, well, private sector, you have to work with us because we need you, not for the government, but with the government for a common wished outcome. For example, if we did once in Estonia, digital identity is not limited to public services. And this is the major success factor why it's so popular in Estonia. We use public services a handful of times in a year. We don't really, if you just use your national digital identity for public services, it's very hard to ensure that they are up by the population. When you extend this also for the benefit of private sector and private services, that's where the magic happens. That's where you create impact. I use pan-in services a couple of times a week, not just a handful of times. So it's the idea of public-private partnerships have to carry the idea that no, private sector is not working just for the government good, but together to find solutions that work for both and that benefit in the longer term the end users, citizens and businesses. So I think that's the major point to add here to Aline.
Yeah, Caline also wanted to add something as
Yeah, just very quickly. Another element that I think very important for this kind of partnership, beyond the let's say the synergies or the collaboration with Estonian firm and government, partnership between Estonian companies and African companies also is important. I know a case where there is an Estonian company or let's say European company that delivers service to public institution, but has this kind of challenge in let's say performing, let's say, I would say, not strategic activities still in Estonia. The reason of that is because they lack of let's say, local partner or local resources to actually do this kind of activity. So this is typically the case for an Estonian company to build or a strong relationship with a local partner in order to supply this kind of, let's say, less impactful and less strategic activities, which are very important for the business, but not that strategic to justify that they keep, they're still done in Estonia or in Europe. So, and that brings another value is that it will be a win-win relationship because this kind of partnership will help building local expertise and moving forward kind of accelerate technology and knowledge transfer. Having partnership where the entire capability and the entire service is delivered from Estonia or from Europe is, to me, it's not sustainable. It will work for a certain time, but rapidly you have other players coming from the local scene that will, let's say, compete with those kind of foreigners. So again, the partnership will be most efficient if the Estonian companies has this kind of mindset of building up, taking the time to build strong relationship with local partners.
Do we have a question from the audience? 2 questions, actually. Okay. So I have like my last, because we have around 5 minutes to left here. So can you raise the hand that had a question? We had 2 questions. Okay, there's a bit more, but yeah.
Can I go?
Okay.
Hello, Lembit Loo, Portaal.ee. I have a bit of a big question for the end here. After a long career in regular digital services, and some years in development cooperation, including living a couple of years in Rwanda. Now actually taking a deep dive into the AI and AGI world. And I'm really amazed at the rate of development and the speed of development in this area, where many of the leading experts and investors in the world are saying that the artificial general intelligence is either really here or getting here within the next couple of years. And a couple of questions that I have is, and in my everyday work, I'm focusing, having conversation with the companies of how they can be ready for the fact that really in a couple of years, 5 at the most, they're competing with organizations where all the office work is being done by agents, all the physical work is done by robots, and all the logistical work is done by the self-driving transportation. And when I'm kind of looking at the picture of digital governance and advancement of the digital societies and everything like this, I have 2 feelings. One is that it feels like the conversation is a bit lagging about the speed of, we have this new intelligence that's actually converging with our own thinking coming with AGI. And the other part of it is kind of thinking back that in Estonia 30 years ago, when we started on this transformation, we made a really strong decision to move to internet. It was a new technology, coming technology. It really enabled us to make this giant leap. How much do you see that coming of the artificial general intelligence and all the advancements with the AGI as a technology are impacting and really changing the discussion right now? Thank you.
Do you want to address the question to somebody specific?
I would maybe start with Ralph and then the other panelists.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want us to take all of them or just one?
Yeah, let's take one more and then we can cover that questions because we're really running out of time. All right.
Thank you. My name is Gonza from Tanzania. My question is to anyone, but maybe it might be relevant to Isaac and maybe Helen, about integrity when it comes to digital solutions. So I've studied in Finland for like 6 years, here in Estonia for 4. So culturally, I have been influenced by the high level of integrity of Baltics. So how do you sort of navigate at getting Africans to adopt digital revolution with that sort of element that, a typical example, someone might be tempted to screenshot data of a high figure, or maybe just data of, someone they're not happy with or whatever. So, in that context of integrity, how do you sort of navigate? Like here, my information is online, but there's a log, and I know who's accessed my information. So do you do the exact same things?
All right, but let's do a bit of a round from Helena's side here, so that you can answer. But let's try to be very, very concrete and.
Yeah, I will be very short. The answer is yes, IS, because that's something that Aline said. It starts with transparency as well. You need to be transparent, and that means when you're transparent, you entrust the services. When you trust the services, you will use the services. So. And how do you ensure trust? There have to be some control mechanisms in place, such as laws, for example. But I will stop here because we have 15 seconds left.
Caline, anything?
Yeah, nothing more to add. Policing will also put in place the framework to actually overcome these kind of challenges. Benin has done a wonderful work in reducing corruption in the entire society.
And it's our premier.
Thank you. I think digital trust is very important, and how we achieved it, I think, what I mentioned before is public participation according to our 2010 constitution. And then Kenyans have been moving very fast because, previously, when ATMs were started, people were doubting, how could I just go to a machine in Kenya, that is? How do I go to a machine and then I just punch in my number? People will steal my money. But with time now, they've now even moved beyond that. You can even transfer money just with an app, millions of shillings. So that is very key. But the other thing that we're also doing, my brother, as a country, is we are just about to be able to crack the digital ID. So that is how we have moved. And in fact, even with our passport now, we've also enhanced the features more in terms of security, and with 75% of Gen Zs, and so the uptake is growing. So yes, that integrity is very important, but you need to move with the public. That is both the private, the private sector, the government sector, and the entire populace. So for you to be able to achieve that, if you move just as a government without moving with all these sectors, you are likely to meet some headwinds. In Kenya, with our 2010 constitution, if you don't public participate a policy or an initiative, people go to court to be able to block you. So we are very much aware about that. And of course, we have a number of cases still in court, but we are working very hard, to enhance public participation to be able to dissipate those court cases. Thank you.
Awesome.
I will address the two questions very quickly. On AI, if you look in Rwanda, for example, and even across Africa, you're going to see in Rwanda yesterday they just passed the Data Exchange Act policy, okay, for public institutions, and before that it was the AI Act, okay. So again, those are very important topics. As Smart Africa, we created the AI Council for Africa. It's a big deal. It's because we want to change the narrative. We hear AI from there. Let's hear AI from the African continent and our leaders. And what we hear is that AI, and this is the misconception that we have, AI will replace people, would take people's jobs. No, it's not true. What's true is that AI would take the jobs of people that do not know how to use AI. AI would take the jobs of the ones that do not know how to use AI, and it applies to businesses as well. So it's important to raise awareness there. That's one. On the question for the transparency and the trust, let's go back very quickly to what digital governance means. In Africa, digital governance is how governments use those digital tools to interact with citizens and businesses. Fundamentally, this is what digital governance is. It's the interaction using digital of government with the citizens and businesses. It's powerful. So it's important that it's done with transparency, with efficiency, and with inclusion.
Awesome. So Daniel was kind enough to give me a couple of more minutes, so I'm going to use that. So I have a wrap-up question for everybody, but just I will expect the answer to be just one sentence, and really one sentence. So what is one digital public service that, if implemented broadly across Africa, could most transform how businesses operate? One single digital public service that could mostly transform how businesses operate.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that exactly, because I wouldn't say digital public service, but a digital enabler as such. I would say interoperability at all levels.
Awesome. Caline?
I would say connectivity, meaning talking about Africa, and I would like 2 seconds to actually complement the question that I didn't fully answer before about the potential or the concrete example of successful startup in Africa. So connectivity is what made the firm called Gozem, which is like bold in Estonia, succeed. So without connectivity, the private sector will not flourish. Thank you.
Isaac?
I would say both digital connectivity. Electricity is very important because, you know, without electricity, if you don't charge your gadgets, you can't be able to operate. You can't be able to operate them. But most importantly, and this is what I would say, because this is what we've achieved, this digitalization of the government in Kenya and Rwanda, is leadership for the country. That is very, very fundamental. And then, of course, with the cooperation of the private sector, and so and lastly, we need to enhance digital diplomacy in Africa, and you need to help us to do that. We can do that. We are now doing that in East Africa. Then we need to regionalize it, and then now use it as a continental a movement. Thank you.
Well, that's why this event is organized, so to especially build these partnerships. But Jazz, it's the very last words to you, Ralph.
In one sentence, huh?
In one sentence, just try to be very.
I had 3.
I would say digital ID, because it solves the biggest challenge of Africa, in my opinion, which is trust. Trust in governments, trust in digital. And since we're on the panel for accelerating doing business in Africa, I would add that trust is Africa's new true currency. And the businesses that will know how to navigate in that trusted environment will grow faster than anybody else.
That's a very good note to end and wrap up our discussion here. So please join me for a massive, massive round of applause to our panelists here.